I am Karin,
And I'm Andrew.
and we are the new Botanist. So today we'll be talking about the Parlour Palm. Andrew, what can you tell us about this plant?
Well, it's a very iconic house plant. It first became really popular during the Victorian era, mainly because it's quite tall and it was highly tolerant of the sort of dirty houses, the very sooty houses of the day. The parlour palm is named after the parlour where you would put it. So you put it near the fireplace, you put it near the doors, and you don't need to dust it so that its leaves can be dusty and it's very shade tolerant. The Latin name is Camadieri elegans, and it's one of the most popular houseplants ever sold.
Oh, yes, really? How do we know?
We keep various track records of what trends are happening throughout seasons, what people are demanding from supermarkets, growers, and even going back in time, it was very popular during the Victorian era where it was just, yeah, you just had to have one.
Where has it originally come from? Where does it live in the wild?
Well, it originally came from the rainforests of Central and South America. So it grows in the underwood. So it's very sort of shady there. And that's where it gets its tolerance from.
So I have one, and I mean it is beautiful. It's quite tall, but quite regularly it gets sort of these brown bits. And as you know, I am not very tolerant of ugly-looking flowers, and it is not ugly looking. I'm exaggerating here, but it does get these brown leaves. How do I actually look after it? Where should I put it? Because I feel like I've tried several places, some brighter, some darker, watering. I've tried a few different things. I just don't quite know how to look after it properly, I think.
Well, imperfections are quite normal for any sort of living being, but they do tend to get browning of their sort of palms. This could be due to being put in full sun where they don't really like. So put them on a bright south-facing window, they won't be very happy. It could be overwatering or underwatering, which is quite a lot to take in. But if you check the soil, if it's quite damp, then reduce watering. If it's in a sunny area, pull it back against a sort of a darker wall. Obviously, they do need sunlight, so you can't put them in a cupboard. But out of direct sunlight, as long as there's a sort of a window, even if it's north-facing window, it'll be perfectly happy.
I was interested to hear you say that people used to put it next to fireplaces and stuff because very often plants don't really like differences in temperature. So how does this plant deal with that then?
Well, it's had to adapt to living in the home, but it's very tolerant because it's in the rainforests, sort of in the undergrowth. There's lots and lots of other plants. There's a lot of competition. It's shaded, so it has to deal with a lot of troubles. So it has a high tolerance of a lot of different conditions. And of course, bring it into the parlours of Victorian homes, it was a very different atmosphere. It was very sooty. It had the temperature changes. But these plants can live for months and months and be very unhappy. But if you keep looking after it, it'll live for at least 20, 30 years.
And if it's in ideal conditions, what size can it get up to?
So in ideal conditions, big pot, out of direct sunlight, it can grow up to 2 meters. It's a very, it's a statement piece in your home. So if you can buy the larger ones, or you can grow sort of a baby one and then grow it up to an adult. But in ideal conditions, big pot, it really sort of fill the room.
When we're talking about repotting plants, you often say when the pot distends, that's when you need to start thinking about repotting your plant. But with a plant like the parlor palm, if I stick mine, even if the pot is not distended, into a larger pot, will that help it to become more bushy, or does it require to be slightly more hemmed in by the pot?
Well, quite often, Parlour Palms are actually sold as one plant, but they're actually formed of lots of little plants. So sometimes you have lots of different stems coming up, and that's actually individual plants. So they do like to be crushed, not too crushed. I always advise for these sort of plants is that if the plastic pot is a little bit extended, then pot up. You can pot up to about 2 to 3 sizes bigger, ideally no more, but then the plant gets a bit lost in its pot. So I would recommend maybe 3 sizes up of pot maximum. You don't want to do it anymore. And of course, if you put it in too big a pot, it's only going to grow to about 2 meters. so it might look a bit silly.
You said it sort of spread. So how does it spread, and are there easy ways in which you can propagate them?
So the Parlour Palm actually grows via rhizomes, so it spreads out. So these are just long roots under the soil, and then these sort of breach the surface of the soil and grow another stem, and they continue to do that, and they grow outwards in a circle, even circle. So if you do want to repot, but you don't want to go into a bigger pot, what you can do is take it out its current pot that's a little bit extended, and then it sounds harsh, but just rip it apart from below, and then you can half it, you can third it, so you can take 3 bits, depending on the size, and then you have 3 palms, and then they'll continue to spread out.
Oh, cool. So that's a bit like the mother-in-law's tongue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a lot of house plants that spread outwards. There's a lot of guidance online and what have you, so do your reading, don't just go ahead and rip it apart. There's a certain way of ripping apart. And of course, after planting these ripped apart plants, some parts might die. That's perfectly normal.
And is there a specific time of year where that is better to do that in, or does that not matter really?
It would be the summer, they're growing fair amount, and you would do it in preparation for autumn.
Are there any pests that these plants get? Are there what are the things that can go wrong with them?
They are quite sort of pest tolerant, nutrient deficient tolerant. I mean, to a degree, there's limits, but you can in summer, if you leave your plant outside because it's warm, or open it if it's near a door or a big window, you can get aphids on, little insects. They won't completely take over usually because it's such a different plant compared to the UK, but you just watch out for those little pests, and you can just get a little bit of wet tissue paper or kitchen roll or what have you, and just wipe the stems and take them all off. Scale bugs can be a problem as well, but just wipe them off. But generally, they're quite tolerant to most conditions, really. That's why they were so popular.
Is it good for our plants to put them out in the summer?
It's totally not necessary. You can do just to freshen them up, or if you want to give them a good dusting, you take them out. You can do that, but you run the risk of getting insects, pests, diseases. The chance goes up. I don't do it. It's just a risk.
Okay. Is there anything else about this plant that we haven't covered yet?
One thing I would like to mention is when I say shade tolerant, most people probably think hallway that has no windows, no natural light, perfect. Let's imagine you've got a south-facing window, bright sun. That's direct sunlight. A lot of cacti like that. Moving further down, so let's imagine you're in the living room. In the middle of the room, that's medium light. So this is where the Parlour Palm likes to be in, or even darker. Lots of other sort of leafy house plants grow in this sort of light, or on a bookshelf. Or if you have a wall that directly faces direct sunlight, that's that type of light. And then you go into shade. Now plants do need sunlight, but if you've got a north-facing window and it's against the wall, that's very low light. So ferns like that sort of light, Parlour Palms.
So would you recommend it as a plant for people?
I think for a brand new plant carer, definitely go for it. I got a baby one that I'm trying to grow up to be an adult. I mean, I had 2 die on me, one in the move and one where a cat sat on it. But other than that, I would definitely recommend. It's very tolerant, and it can be quite a big statement piece in your home.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you will join us again next time for more tips and tricks on how not to kill your plants.
If you'd like us to cover a specific plant or have any other questions, you can get in touch via botanicaldoctor.co.uk.